Hello and welcome to the Glenfiddich Challengers Club podcast, coming to you from the skyline of the City of Gold. Hosted live in the world's first whiskey bar in a billboard, located in Johannesburg. The Glenfiddich Challengers Club is a space of shared opinion, views, and perspectives of success brought to you by Glenfiddich, the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey. Each week, we curate a themed discussion with some of South Africa's most brilliant minds, a selection of changemakers and visionaries in a forum designed to inspire, equip, and motivate the next generation. Welcome to the Challengers Club. All right, so this is it. This is the final episode of the Glenfiddich Challengers Club podcast series. It's been a wonderful journey of discovery, and obviously the journey of trying to understand what it means to be successful and what it takes to get there, and if getting there is ever enough. And it's been a wonderful ride with various challenges throughout the week. It's been thought-provoking, and indeed, in some instances, we've been left with a lot to think about. And tonight, as we look at the final episode of this edition, it almost comes together over the last couple of weeks. And it's really unbelievable, just the kinds of ideas that have come out through these discussions. Of course, driven by the themes that we've had over the weeks. And tonight is no different. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the culture of creating, the culture of being a creator, and how we begin that conversation as a nation, and ultimately what kind of society we want to be one day. Do we want to be a society of creators? And ultimately, how do we get there? I would imagine that everyone in the room here is exactly that, a creator in some way or the other. And I would love for you guys to share those experiences with us so that we know exactly how you did it. As I can imagine, there are different people in the room with different experiences. So it really should be quite interesting to see how we tap into this mindset. I think it's an emerging consciousness of trying to get into that realm of thinking. Why are we always consuming? When are we going to start creating as a South African society? And most importantly, driving that message to the next generation of challengers, which is really key, considering the panel that we have here and how much you guys know. So as we begin our conversation, I think it's very key to just go around the room and do quick introductions so that whoever's listening to this podcast knows exactly who is in the building. So I will start with the lady on my left. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sophie Kanza. I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I am a peace activist, passionate about the representation of youth migrants and asylum seekers in South Africa.
Beautiful. Welcome. Evening, sir.
Evening. My name is Lita Soizwapi. I'm a graphic designer, and I'm also a self-taught iOS developer. I created an app called How Rider. It became #1 in the App Store, top paid and top grossing South African category. And I care about design and creation.
Wonderful. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Johnny Cornthwaite. I work for Glenfiddich. So I've come over from the UK to come and take part and experience the Challengers Club.
I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions from some of the members of the panel. Welcome. Hi.
I'm Ryan Stram. Good evening, everybody. I'm an extreme open water and ice swimmer and inspirational speaker, as well as running an advertising business. Great to be here tonight.
Hi, guys. My name is Ian Furr. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Been involved in all kinds of businesses, from retailing to music to race relations consulting. And most recently, I'm the founder of the Sorbet Group, which is a chain of beauty salons. I've subsequently sold that, and I'm now consulting and coaching business and entrepreneurs.
Excellent. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Tutugo Shezi. I'm the founder of Livestock Wealth, which is a crowd farming platform where farmers can access funding directly from individuals like you and me.
My name is DJ Sabi. I'm a media practitioner. I do radio on a day-to-day basis, and I do everything besides medicine.
DJ Fresh, like Sabi, media. I've been a DJ since 1985. Believe it or not, I've been on radio since 1992. I've been on TV since 1997. Serial philanthropist. If there's a change to be made, I want to be there. I've probably put over 2,000 kids through college through my foundation. And if there's change to be made, I want to be there. So, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Tsepo, and I'm the founder of Tsepo the Gene Maker at Denim Brand. Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Zogotisani. I wear two hats. I'm the founder of Legacy Ventures, which is a venture capital firm focused on investing in black SMEs, as well as Legacy's technology conferencing, which gives South African startups opportunity to create a global footprint.
Good evening, my name is Titi Mba. I'm a master practitioner in real estate, and I also wear two hats. I run a company called Black Real Estate, as well as Mzansi Cribs. I'm very passionate about the youth, and I sit on the Love Life board, which is part of my giving back to the youth.
Hi, my name is Lutando Tibini, known as Jazz. I'm the national brand ambassador for Glenfiddich.
Welcome, everybody. I think a decent place to start would be to talk about, where it all begins. If we talk about creating and being innovative, or being an innovator, where does it all begin? I'm going to start with Tsepo. Maybe it's because by design, that is your space. Because being a creator, means you've got to come up with an idea that the world somehow needs. But where does that all begin?
Sure. So for me, it all began when I was a kid. I was raised by 3 strong black women. My mom, who was a cleaner, my aunt, who is one person in our family who she was the first person in our area to go to varsity. And I remember as a young kid, she was, back in the early 2000s, she used to come back home, Ashaya 2-piece, jean on jean, a nice denim jacket, a white shirt, and a flat jeans, and like with Spice Girl boots. And for me, it's stuff that I saw on TV. And it was all about telling stories. My grandmother is a storyteller. I started filmmaking because I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to create stories. I wanted to create movies. And I kind of felt like I was more into fashion than I am into making movies. So I ventured into fashion. And fast forward to 2015, I wanted to find a fabric with peppers. And for me, denim and leather are the only fabrics with peppers. So if you think about it, 150 years down the line, we're still wearing denim. 60% of us in the room are wearing jeans, which Glenfiddich tonight is going to give away custom-made pair of jeans for everybody. But for me, I feel like I wanted to share stories of where I come from, what inspires me, and also leave a legacy. Where I come from a dusty neighborhood, dusty, dingy, dangerous, and there hasn't been anybody who's created something that can be sold to the world. And I kind of saw an opportunity in the world that everybody loves jeans. We all wear jeans. It's part of our lifestyle from growing up, from being a kid, which I jean till today.
So the world around you almost gave you direction as to where you want to be in terms of, you spoke about your mom, and so all the things you grew up seeing kind of directed you to. So that's how you tapped into your creativity. But I mean, is that the only way? I mean, and maybe let me bring you in here. Is creativity something you can teach someone? Because and can you be a creator if you're not creative? That's the other thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I'm not quite sure how much you can teach creativity. But I think if you want to go into business as an entrepreneur, you need to be creative. I think there's a couple of characteristics that you need as an entrepreneur. Firstly, you need to have some sort of intuition that tells you that something is right, even though you don't have the evidence to prove it. Then you have to have courage, because you're going to be bumping heads against everyone else, and you have to have determination for the long haul. So somewhere in that, there's a lot of creativity, because you have to create something that people want. Unfortunately, a lot of people go into business because they want to make money, and that's the wrong idea. You need to go into business to serve the needs and wants of people, and if you do that well, you will make money, and the money will follow you. But if you chase the money, it will elude you.
So somehow a creator's got to have a good heart or good intention.
Good intentions. I think you need to understand your reason for being. Why are you opening this business? And who are you going to serve, and how are you going to serve them? because it's all about service and attitude. If you get that right, then the money will come. So I think the first thing is to really understand why you are doing this. And a lot of people don't understand it. They think it's just to make money. This is what I want to do because I want to be rich. And when I started in the beauty industry, I had no idea what I was doing. Quite frankly, I thought that a Brazilian was a person who lived in Brazil. So you know, and that Hollywood was a place they made movies. So I just had to go in there. One of the things that going into a new industry, you go in there with the benefit of ignorance. You don't know. So you look at things with fresh eyes and you try and challenge the conventional wisdom of that industry. So if you're going to do something, try and do something that's different. Try and go out there and create something that's never been done before. And don't let your fears overcome your beliefs. Because I think a lot of us have those fears that stop us, or we don't have the self-confidence or the belief in ourselves to go out and do this. So if you can overcome that, then you're in good shape.
I want to bring fresh in on this one because in your intro you mentioned how many years you've been doing certain things, radio, television, club DJing and all of that. And I suppose throughout these journeys, you've somehow had to be a creator. I mean, tell us about your story in that regard.
I think it's very important to know why you are doing this. For a lot of kids, a lot of kids will wait for me outside the studio and say, I want to be famous like you. And I tell them that I'm famous as a consequence of what I do, not because I want to be famous. And like with, any business, do you know your audience? Do you know what they want? Are you serving that need? Because for me, if you can tick all three of those boxes, there's no reason why you should fail. Because you know your audience, you know what they want, and can you give them what they want? And there's a Japanese saying, I can't remember what the Japanese saying is, where your purpose meets your passion, meets your calling. If you can find that sweet spot and service that sweet spot, there's no reason why you can't do this for as long as you live. Sure. And that's one of the reasons I believe I've been in this industry for as long as I have. Because for me, it's not about the fame. I mean, I was telling Sabi earlier on, I started doing a drive show. I was getting 4,000 Rand on a drive show. But I didn't even complain because I knew that I'm building here. I'm going to build so hard, I'm never going to have to apply for a job again. And that's one of the secrets.
But how do you tap into that? Because right there, I mean, I see, a person who almost had a vision of the future.
Yes.
Perhaps the future unknown, but a future nonetheless.
Sure.
So how do you tap into that spirit?
I think because I knew from about age 13, 14 that my purpose is to change lives, I want to make sure that every single thing that I do needs to tick that one box. If I'm not going to change a life, if I'm not going to affect change, if I'm not going to change how you think, I'm not going to touch it. I've turned down massive checks because they didn't tick that one box. Will I change lives here? Will I change even one life here? So for me, it's about that my purpose has almost guided every single thing that I do.
Ryan, I want to bring you in here because you have an interesting mix of, experiences at a personal level and at an adventurous level, at a business level. I mean, when we talk about being creators, I mean, is that in your existence, is that the first thing so I'm doing this because I want to be a creator, or is it about doing something because you believe that you've got something valuable to offer in it?
Well, as you say, my journey has been quite different. I'm loving listening to the stories tonight, and I'm humbled by the presence that I'm in. I've been on a journey where my creativity has come from a hobby and from a passion. I started swimming just to get off the couch and get fit once upon a time. And that started, someone challenged me to do something, and I decided, well, I'm going to try and swim from Robben Island to Blouberg in a Speedo in that cold water. And I started to learn a little bit about how the cold impacts me and it impacts my mind, and how us as humans aren't evolved well to handle the cold. We've evolved very well to avoid it, and just how overprotective our mind is. And then I started to do bigger and better swims, and I started to get fascinated with the extreme cold stuff and found myself in -1 degree water in Antarctica, pushing past limits that humans weren't meant to survive. And I tell this long story because it's all just been out of something that I want to do to challenge myself. And through that, and through the encouragement of others, Jill Atwood as well, she's pushed me to actually convince me that I've got something to offer. And stand on stage and start sharing a message. And I really didn't see it at first, if I'm deadly honest, until I stood up on stage and put my story from the couch to Antarctica together as an absolutely regular guy with no superhuman abilities. And I told that story, and just from that first talk I gave so many years ago, the feedback that I got was just mind-blowing in terms of how I can help people, how I can help people understand that you don't have to watch TV to see those wonderful people up there, those superhumans who do stuff at the Olympics and everywhere else. You sitting on the couch at home are just as capable of doing everything. And through that, I've started to create business. I've created a speaking business. I've created a workshop business. I've just launched a range of slip-slops as well.
And it's all born out of, as you said, challenging yourself first.
It's challenging myself.
And through that, you were able to just be a creator. It sounds like a natural process. It doesn't sound like, storyboard. The storyboard comes in the end, in hindsight.
Correct.
When you look at the journey.
Listening to what Ian has said as well, and being brave. That is my key message, and I loved hearing that from Ian and also from Fresh. Being brave, because we, as humans, we are so defaulted to stay within our comfort zones, because the mind has evolved to protect us not only from doing stupid stuff, the pain that comes from walking into a fire or falling off a cliff. It protects us from the emotional pain that comes from failure. And when you step outside, you do that something different that you gentlemen are talking about. There's a chance you're going to fail, and that's going to hurt you emotionally. And therefore, subconsciously, we decide not to try. I'd rather stick in this straight and narrow where I know I'll get my check and I'll satisfy my manager. I'm not going to step outside the box. So I've learned through my swimming and through the extreme stuff I've done just how overprotective the mind is, because it tells me to get out that water long before I actually have to get out the water.
I want to bring in Zuko here. I mean, you spoke about your background as a venture capitalist, but when we talk about the importance of being creators, I mean, what is your understanding of that? The importance of being a creator?
So look, I resonate a lot with DJ Fresh's purpose here. It must really come out of passion, right? It's come out of passion and purpose. So he was doing radio even before I was born, but somehow we have a similar song to sing. And I'm not creating anything. I think Legacy Ventures is really an enabling facility. We're an empowerment facility. And unfortunately, it is a disruption. Unfortunately, it is creative, because not enough people are doing what I do to support easily available markets that need support. So I don't really see myself as a creator. I see myself, obviously, and empathize very closely to purpose and actually challenging status quo. I think, it's an obvious gap for all of us to see. There's a lot of businesses out there failing day in and day out. But if they had the right mentorship from Ian, or if they had the right support from someone else from a financial perspective, or even guidance in any way, shape or form, those businesses might live to last. And I'm just in a space where I've seen what global markets can do and the global ecosystems can do. And I really would like to be in a position where I can elevate South African startup ecosystems to be in a competitive space. So you can call it creativity, but I think it's just a purpose.
Exactly. Especially when you talk about the fact that you guys are doing, you mentioned disruption. That on its own is A, a brave thing to do, and B, it is something different in your particular space. TT, everybody wants to leave a mark in the world. That's what I'd like to think anyway. We can't just live lives and then, we leave the earth and that's it. We got to leave a mark. And I suppose one of the ways you can do that is being a creator. But is it an easy thing to start? Is it easy to start creating something?
The difficulty with starting something is the people that are going to be a hurdle in your life are those the closest to you. So your family and your friends, they'll tell you can't do it. What are you doing? And I went through that when I moved from media and production into real estate. It was quite a shift from a career point of view. And for me, it was really about serving a purpose. There's a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. It's got 40 chapters, and he encourages you to read one chapter per day and reflect on the chapter. And after I read that, I realized that my purpose is actually to help as many South Africans to own property instead of rent. And it's something that I've been able to achieve over time, and I've seen how I've changed people's lives through that. It's something that you can take for granted, but you'd be amazed at the kind of stories that I have to encounter on a daily basis. So in my business, there's always a reason why people are selling or buying property. It's either they're going through a divorce, they're getting married, they're upgrading, downgrading, financial issues. So you have to deal with the psyche of that person that you're dealing with, and it's beyond just the sale. And when I get a lot of calls from guys who want to get into this for the money, I always push back because I didn't get into this business for that. So to create that rapport with people and for them to trust you, because you're dealing with a lot of confidential information around clients, you have to respect a lot of that. And for me, to get to that point wasn't easy, but it's possible, and that's what it's about.
I love the fact that there's a lot of craftsmanship coming through in the conversation so far, where people are talking about the beauty about what they do and what it does for other people. Sophie, I want to bring you in because in your space, it would seem to me that it's always about the people. Now, I mean, you're a peace-loving Sophie, and I'm saying that sort of figuratively speaking, but in the space that you're in, what sort of opportunities are there to create something new, different, to challenge convention?
Well, I've never thought I was creative. So my background is largely in the music industry, which is worlds apart from activism. But my sister and I put together a short film about Afrophobia, which ended up winning an award at the United Nations. It's been seen on 4 continents, etc. And that is great, but we still have bills to pay. So how do we monetize? Even though it's for social good, how do we monetize that? And so we worked on different ways because we're not filmmakers, but it was full of passion and it came from a really good, pure place, and that's why it did well. So you put advertising behind that. You put together a rate card when you present this film, people pay you. You do workshops.
And it's interesting because at first you said you never saw yourself as a creative, but somehow you've had to find creative ways to deal with your realities of what you do. So in some instances, you're almost put in a position where you have to be creative. And how do you then respond to that? And Tutugo, I mean, you're in a very different space to Sophie. How does it work in your experience? Is it a question of being pulled into a position where you have to be creative and think differently, or is it a different kind of experience for you?
The way I see it is that people are rich. They're rich with ideas. People can create anything because God's first commandment to men was to be fruitful and multiply. That was to every creature. But what really makes people uncreative is the environment that they're in. Everyone has got creativity. Not a single person doesn't have. But it's just the environment that one is in. It's like the soil. If the soil is bad, then there's nothing going to grow.
So you're saying we don't have an environment that's conducive to create or to generate those kinds of creators coming from it, where we have people coming up with Facebooks and Instagrams. And I'll bring Lita in on this one because I'm sure he wants to challenge that thinking just based on what he's done in his career. Yeah.
So my thinking is that in South Africa somewhere there are people, tons of them, who have got more brain power than Mark Zuckerberg. Much more creativity than him. But the environment hasn't really supported the creation of that idea that the guy could have, whether it's a computer not being there at home. That Mark Zuckerberg had a computer when he was 3 years old. So then that guy, since he doesn't have the computer from the time he's 3 years old, then the chances of him ever catching up to Zuckerberg are nearly zero.
So Lita, I mean, you've dabbled in a number of spaces, but you've developed an app that was very different in its own category, did very well. What were some of the challenges of being a creator in your space? And are these challenges real that Ntutugo speaks of?
Yeah, the first challenge was that I'm a designer. And I think there's a certain stereotype when you are a creative that you think with your right brain, and the logical people think with the other side of the brain. And I think for me, that's wrong, because I had this mentality that I can use both spheres of my brain. I can learn how to program. It can give me ideas to also empathize with the other side. But it's just that we are pigeonholed in a lot of cases to say, you are this, therefore sit in your corner. When I started building my app, as a designer, I was told, you're a talented designer. Why do you mess up with code? There are people who've got doctorate in coding, right? Who've got 10 years experience. Don't do this. You're wasting your time. And I think I believed them for about 3 years. And at the time, it was about 2007. And I didn't realize that that was the first time, I think when the first iPhone came in, that the first SDK that we're using, that I created an app for my company to do timesheets, to calculate the time. And then I built this app and I was excited because I couldn't sleep. I was just enthusiastic. I'm like, okay, I've built something useful. And I showed it to my friend and I said, this is what I've built. And they said to me, it's great, but this is not your core business. You are a designer, right? And I believed him for 3 years. So when the iPad in 2010, when the iPad came in, and I realized that the SDK that we're using, it's when Steve Jobs launched the iPhone. I almost kicked myself. I was so mad in terms of believing someone telling me that I couldn't do something, but I still had the itch. I wanted to do this. And I told myself that, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I love this, I think I can contribute. And I think I can use both spheres of my brain to learn how to do this. It's gonna be hard, it's not gonna be easy. But I think what I can do with it is just the power, I can change things with this.
I mean, right there, I see confidence, right? You had the confidence to do that, but not everybody has that confidence for a number of reasons, maybe the way you're raised or just the way you are as a person. So how do we get around that, these issues of confidence?
I think imposter syndrome, everyone has got it. I think the first time when I was invited to the States, it was the guys I respect in the game, veterans. I mean, it was this developer conference on business of developing apps. There were 10 speakers. 9 of them were from the US. These guys worked with Steve Jobs at Next. People that I respected who've done things for Nike, for Zappos in the world. But my perspective mattered because I designed the Caltran app that had a unique user interface that became #1 in South Africa, even though there were 3 alternatives in the space. But the whole thing of having an opinion, it matters.
I mean, Johnny, I want to bring you in here just from your own experiences, working, for example, with a Glenfiddich, which I would imagine this conversation, in fact, I think resonates with them beautifully when you consider just their journey over the generations. I mean, how has that been for you in this journey of understanding what creativity and being a creator is all about?
I mean, firstly, it's incredible to listen to everybody's stories here, and just trying to take it in and pick out some of the common themes. And I think it was interesting you spoke about confidence a minute ago. And I actually almost feel as though it's the opposite of confidence, because what everybody that's creative, which I think is everybody in the world, and so everybody has that in them. But it's not necessarily having the confidence to go out and be creative. It's almost the flip side of that, where you can embrace your own vulnerability. Because to be creative, you have to take something of yourself and put it out there to everyone in the world. You have to get in the arena and let everyone else judge you. And that is remarkably difficult. Whether you're living a relatively kind of day-to-day normal life, Joe Blogs on the street, and that's just doing something at work, having an idea and saying, I think we should move that cupboard over there. The other people in the office can judge that. Or whether it's going on the radio and saying, this is an entirely new type of music, and copping a bit of flack for it, it's putting yourself out there. And it's almost not that confidence, because confidence knows that it's going to do well. It's the vulnerability to accept that every single one of us is vulnerable, and that we're going to go out there, people are going to judge us, but we're okay with that.
Fresh, you wanted to say something on that. I mean, you've created a lot in your time in the industry, and I'm sure with that, it's taken a lot of you giving a lot of yourself as well.
In fact, that's what I wanted to talk about. I mean, Sabi spoke about legacy. And I think for a lot of successful people, a lot of us almost operate from a place of fear of scarcity that if I let someone else in, I might lose what I have. Whereas I've built my career on the opposite of that. My attitude is the more people I let in to allow them to shine their light, the more my light can see further. So I've deliberately always made sure I'm mentoring someone. And I will not mentor you if I don't think you'll be bigger than me, because then I'm not growing, I'm not learning. So that's always been my attitude. I fear no one in this industry. That's why I will confidently say, oh, you're good, let's work together. Because I know that by the time you're flying, I've learned so much from you, probably more than you've learned from me. But we're so scared to mentor people we believe might be better than us because we think we're going to lose it all. For me, it's have that confidence to say, let everyone in. The more light there is, the farther we can all see. So I've built 27 years of radio on that. I mean, I've mentored probably half of the massive DJ names in the industry right now because I knew I would also learn from them. So if I don't think you're hungrier than I was when I started, I'm not going to work with you. I want you to want to be bigger than me. Sure. Otherwise, I'm not learning.
I love this theme of collaboration, and it's a key part of what this discussion was also going to be about. Because in this journey of being creators and creating spaces, businesses, creative spaces, whatever, you can't do it alone. And I would imagine that collaboration plays a key role. So, I mean, Ian, let's talk about your experiences of, the success stories in collaborating with people and why it is an important thing. People always say, I'll stand at a pedestal and I'll say, oh, I did this and I did that and I achieved this. But half the time it was with a lot of help from other people and collaborations.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think a lot of my business experience was built on relationships with others. So the more powerful the relationship was, the better the business experience was. Through the music industry, when I was fortunate enough to be partners with Kaifa Semenya and Leto Mbulu and Hugh Mastikela, I learned so much from them, not only about music, but about the world, about politics, about race relations. And I was inspired by them to go out and do the same thing for others. And that's where I started my race relations consultancy, because I realized that the impact of the socio-political environment in South Africa was having a huge impact on things like productivity, and this is back in the 80s and 90s. So I started to consult on race relations and to get people to understand themselves a bit better, to discover who they are, because if you can't identify your own biases and your own stereotypes, you're never going to be able to influence anyone else. So I think that's what I'm working on at the moment, because I think there's still unfinished business there. And I'm curious to know what you're doing there, Sophie, because I'm right in that spot. I believe that we need to work strongly on people understanding the impact of the socio-political environment and how that affects their businesses and collaborating like that.
Beautiful. Tsepo, I'm going to bring you in here because in your space, I'm sure collaboration plays a huge role. Tell us about your experiences in that regard.
So my experiences with collaboration probably takes about 55 people to make one pair of jeans. Then that's the person who plants the cotton, that's the person who picks up the cotton, that's the person who makes the fabric, that's the person who buys the fabric, that's the person who cuts the fabric, kumams or also itunga, the guy who does the branding for us. It probably takes about 55 people to just make one pair of jeans, which we sell for 1,800 to one guy.
I will wear my jeans with more thoughts and more care in the future.
And for me, I think that's the best collaboration ever. It's not only me putting my name on a pair of jeans, but it's me acknowledging all the factors and everybody who played a role just to make one pair of jeans. It's like in music. There's a producer who makes the beats, and then there's a Busiswa who sings a song, and then there's a radio DJ who plays the song, and that's collaboration. And for me, collaboration means that it enables us to get to the next level, and it also gets us to purpose. And I embody collaboration, like DJ Fresh is saying. I only work with people who are willing or who want to be bigger than me. I don't know where my level is at, but I know there are people who, I only work with people who are as hungry as me, or even hungrier than me. Because me being where I am and them looking wherever they are. It's wherever they get to at some point, it shines the light back to us. And like DJ Fresh is saying, I learn more from people who are hungry.
Sure. So if you want to bring you in here on this idea of collaboration, I mean, it probably has a different vibe altogether in your space. Yeah. I would imagine you almost can't fulfill your purpose without collaboration. You can't do it alone, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's also important to say that, I work in a space where people they're very scared to say something. A lot of people don't want to be seen as foreigner sympathizers because people are so angry at us for being here. So because I've made so many relationships before I went fully into my activism work, I have a lot of people who believe in what I do and, are willing to give me a spot, to speak at their schools or their workplaces. And, it takes a lot because people just don't care.
So there are barriers to collaborations. It's not like everybody just wants to work with you. Jez, I'm going to bring you in here, and I would imagine you've been absorbing a lot of what's been said around the table. I mean, how do you relate to the idea of being a creator, and what has been, your personal experience in being one and having something to show for it, quite frankly?
I think if I go back to the first part of my career, I didn't know anything about whiskey, by the way. I was a quantity surveyor before that, for about 6-7 years. And for me, my thing is, the moment you start speaking about being creative, it's always focused mostly on business. Rather than, remember, we are not all entrepreneurs. We need to understand that. But that doesn't create a level of there's no boundary in being a creative within your space, whether it's a working space, okay? Now, for me, it was just creating a brand within a brand. And with that, I was able to treat what I do as a business, meaning that I become more creative for my brand. I think outside for my brand, I become a pioneer for my brand. So for me, creativity, it is not enclosed to only, yes, we have the passion, we have the purpose, but sometimes your purpose lands you in spaces that you wouldn't have imagined it. I mean, from construction to brand and marketing management, those are two totally different roles. But it's all about creating yourself, because the moment you start creating and bringing purpose within yourself, you are able to move further, hence influencing, hence mentoring, and actually being able to draw and propel a message that is well thought of long term.
So how do we then get this culture of being a creator out there? I mean, everyone in the room is a creator. You've got stories well documented in terms of how you've done it and how you're going to do it in the future. But not everybody out there has that thinking, or even has the confidence, or even the ability, or whatever you want to call it. So how do we get that culture to just spread across and to land on people that it is absolutely crucial? Sabi, you wanted to say something?
No. I just wanted to add on, like, the fact that once you become used to failing, like on my side, there's so many doors have been closed in my face. I'm like, but is it locked? Then I'll knock again, and then they'll tell me why this thing is not working right now. I'll go back to my drawing board, and then I'll come back. You know what I mean? So failure for me is just the building blocks to building the big idea.
So people should be afraid to fail and therefore be afraid to create, because they're thinking, hey, what if it doesn't work? All right, good point. Fresh?
What I'm learning as a parent is that that's actually where it starts, in your childhood. That a lot of our passion is killed when you're a child by our very own parents. So one thing I'm conscious of with my kids is the fact that, for instance, I have a daughter who's 10. She asks 100 questions a day. I could tell her to shut up, you're asking too many questions. But I deliberately allow her to be curious, to be a critical thinker, to sometimes even, when we were growing up, we called it back-chatting. But I wanted to have an opinion about every single thing we talk about. Because if you keep that fire burning from that early age, you're creating an adult that is unstoppable, because they know that if my dad thinks my opinion matters, who the hell are you to tell me that it doesn't? So I think we need to learn to allow kids to be curious, to be critical thinkers. It's bad enough our education system does not teach critical thinking. So maybe it's deliberate that kids are not, taught to be critical thinkers. But for me, it's important to allow them to let them fly. If my parents had supported my career when I was 13 and didn't think it's some fleeting hobby, I think I'd be way further than I am right now. My dad only embraced my career after I did 2 years of law school, flunked out, relocated to Joburg. Like, I started DJing when I was 13. My dad first said, well done, when I was 25. Sure. Can you imagine if I got the support when I was 13?
Mm-hmm. Sophie wanted to say something on that note.
Yeah, I think it's very important because, being a migrant in South Africa, there's almost an unspoken rule that you have to take abuse, and you're just lucky to be here, and whatever comes, be grateful. They could have not let you in at the border, but they did, and that didn't fly with my dad. He was always like, say what you mean and don't let anyone tell you what to say. I remember I was 5, and at school they asked me what my name was, and I said leadership qualities. Because my dad would always say that I had leadership qualities. I think parents play a huge role. And until today, I see, because I'm Congolese, so a lot of Congolese parents come up to me and say, why are you doing this? Aren't you scared? I could never let my child do this. And it's not to say that my parents are not scared for me. I'm sure they are, but this is my passion. So I really respect you for letting your children, especially as Black parents, it's tough. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think as we wrap up, I think it's important to leave future challenges with something. And of course, it's not to say that your journey ends here. I mean, who knows where it will end, quite frankly. But there are a lot of people who haven't even started, or somebody has just started and needs, that extra push to make them believe that they too can be someone who's created something, or somebody who creates a legacy in the future. So, Ian, what message do you have for future challenges with regard to getting into the culture of being a creator?
I think it requires some sort of pioneering. If you look at the old days, it was the pioneers that took the risks, that went out there and faced all the dangers, and then the settlers come behind and stand on the top of the mountain and say, is it safe out there now? And then the pioneers will say, yeah, but I've already eaten all the cream. So you have to understand that the pioneer, although it's risky and dangerous and it's a bit scary to talk about failure, Winston Churchill said that success is moving from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And really that's what entrepreneurial thing is about. It's that naive confidence that no matter what happens, you'll be able to get up and start again and keep trying until something happens eventually. I don't think you can ever be truly successful without failure at least once in your life.
Zuko, I want to bring you in on this one as well. There are future challengers out there who want to be something great. They want to be creators. They want to leave a mark, a legacy. Where do they begin? What's your message to them?
My message is to begin. I think a lot of people take a lot of time analyzing, thinking, asking other people for support. And, as a VC, venture capital, I always encourage people to stop knocking on my door, but knock on the customer's door. If you've got a solution, go door to door and make sure that you take whatever product or solution to the market. I think we in South Africa have a culture of there's somewhere that I can get it easier. There's somehow I can have a facility support me in some way. And unfortunately, those facilities are so difficult to access capital or resources from. The best thing as an entrepreneur or wanting to start something of your own is take it literally door to door and make sure you can actually get something out from it. And yeah.
And Sophie, what's your message to future challengers who want to be great one day, who want to leave a mark, maybe make the world a better place? What's your message to them?
Everyone has a story, and everyone can tell their story in their own voice. I get very uncomfortable when people call me the voice of the voiceless, because that's constructed to keep people quiet. And I always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So you need to choose.
Do you want to be eaten or do you want to eat? Ryan, what's your message to future challengers out there who perhaps have great ideas but feel that the mountain is just too high?
I think it's just try and understand that the mountain only looks high. It isn't really. And once you start climbing it, a job is only a job until you start it, and then it becomes easy. So, don't be scared, be brave, and believe in yourself.
Well, they don't call you the big dog for nothing. So as we wrap up with you, on that note, what's your message to future challengers out there who also want to look back and say, well, I've done something for 50 years, 30 years?
I think, especially on the continent as Africans, we tend to second guess ourselves. We suffer from imposter syndrome even on our own continent. And I think we need to have a shift in mindset, because often we blame the leaders, when in actual fact, the problem is not bad leadership. The problem is apathetic youth. How do we get youth to be brave enough to say enough is enough? We deserve better, we deserve different, we deserve other ways of trying to solve our problems. I think the minute we can shift that mindset in young people, you'll be amazed at what can come out of this continent. I mean, we have 1 billion plus people on this continent, but we are making billionaires in Europe and in the US, but not on the continent. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I certainly hope that a lot of what's been said tonight is going to make sense on our podcast. And that, of course, brings us to the end of this particular episode, the 4th one of the Challenges Club podcast series. I'd like to thank everyone in the room for being a part of this incredible journey. And they've been pearls of wisdom. They've been fountains of so much, just flowing rivers, you name it, it's all there. So thank you very much. And this brings us to the end of the Challenges Club podcast series. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Glenfiddich Challenges Club podcast. Keep an eye open for more inspiring discussion from the Glenfiddich Challenges Club in the coming weeks. #Challenges Club. Brought to you by Glenfiddich, the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey. Coming to a city near you. Drink responsibly. Not for persons under the age of 18.